Most people think their life will fall into place when they finally feel motivated, when the timing is right, when confidence magically shows up. But that belief is exactly what's keeping them stuck. Because life doesn't reward motivation, it rewards consistency. Not the big moments, not the perfect days, the small decisions you make when no one is watching. And here's the truth most people never hear. The moment you become consistent, chaos starts organizing itself. Your mind gets clearer, your confidence gets stronger, and suddenly everything you've been chasing starts moving toward you. Most people think change happens in a moment. They're waiting for that surge of energy, that emotional high, that day when they finally wake up feeling unstoppable. And they keep telling themselves, when I feel motivated, then I'll act. But let me tell you something that might challenge the way you've been living your life. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It comes and goes. And if your future depends on how you feel in the moment, then your future will always be fragile. Here's what actually changes a human life. It's not intensity. It's not hype. It's not the massive push you give once in a while. It's consistency. It's the small actions you take when you don't feel like it. It's the promises you keep to yourself on ordinary days. Because every time you repeat an action, you're not just moving closer to a result, you're wiring your identity. Think about it. You don't become strong by lifting a massive weight once. You become strong by lifting manageable weights again and again. Your muscles don't care about your intentions. They respond to repetition. Your nervous system works the same way. Your confidence works the same way. Your discipline, your focus, your self-belief, they are all built through consistency, not intensity. Intensity is exciting. It feels powerful. You make a big decision, you feel fired up, you say, this is it, everything changes today. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, you're all in. But then life happens. You get tired, you miss a day, something doesn't work. And because the change was built on emotion instead of structure, everything collapses. And then you don't just stop the habit. You start questioning yourself. What's wrong with me? Why can't I stick to anything? That question alone weakens you. Consistency doesn't ask how you feel. Consistency asks who you are becoming. When you show up every day, even at a lower intensity, you're sending a powerful message to your brain. I am the kind of person who follows through. And that message compounds. Over time, it creates certainty. And certainty is what creates power. Here's what most people don't understand. Your brain is always looking for evidence. Evidence of who you are. Evidence of what's possible. Evidence of what you deserve. When you act consistently, even in small ways, your brain starts stacking proof. Proof that you can be trusted. Proof that you can handle discomfort. Proof that you don't quit just because it's hard. And once that proof accumulates, something incredible happens. You don't need motivation anymore. Action becomes automatic. That's why consistency beats intensity every single time. Because intensity tries to force change from the outside in. Consistency rewires you from the inside out. Intensity says, I'll do this as long as I feel good. Consistency says, I do this because this is who I am now. And identity is stronger than emotion. Identity is stronger than circumstance. Identity is stronger than fear. Let me make this real for you. Imagine two people. One works out once a week for 2 hours, pushing themselves to the limit, exhausted, sore, miserable. The other works out 20 minutes a day. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Just consistent movement. A year later, who do you think is stronger? Who do you think feels more confident in their body? Who do you think actually changed? The answer is obvious. And yet, when it comes to our goals, our habits, our growth, we keep chasing intensity instead of rhythm. Life doesn't reward people who try hard occasionally. Life rewards people who show up repeatedly. Success is not impressed by your intentions, it responds to your patterns. And consistency creates patterns that life can work with. There's another layer to this that most people miss. Consistency creates emotional safety. When you know what you're going to do today, when you know you'll follow through, your nervous system relaxes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop wasting energy on internal debates. That energy becomes focus. That focus becomes momentum. And momentum makes everything feel easier, even when it's not. People ask, how do I stay disciplined? Discipline is not something you force. Discipline is something that emerges when your actions are predictable. When your body knows what's coming, it stops resisting. That's why routines are powerful, not because they're boring, but because they remove chaos. And when chaos leaves, clarity enters. Consistency also protects you from self-sabotage. When you rely on intensity, missing one day feels like failure. And failure feels heavy, so you avoid restarting. But when you rely on consistency, missing one day is just a data point. You adjust and continue. There's no drama. There's no identity crisis. There's just forward motion. And here's the most important part. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, even in a small way, you deposit into your self-trust account. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. You can read all the books you want. You can listen to all the speeches you want. But confidence is built through kept promises, not big promises, small ones, daily ones. When you become consistent, you stop chasing results and start creating inevitability. You don't wonder if things will work out. You know they will because you're doing the work that makes the outcome unavoidable. That's when stress drops. That's when clarity rises. That's when life starts responding differently to you. And the beautiful thing is this: once consistency is in place, everything else becomes easier. Growth accelerates, confidence stabilizes, opportunities show up. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So remember this and let it sink into your body, not just your mind. You don't need to do more. You need to do it more often. Be consistent and everything falls into place. Most people believe their biggest problem is lack of discipline or lack of willpower. They think something is wrong with them, that they're broken, lazy, or missing some internal switch that other people seem to have. But that's not the truth. The real issue is much deeper. And once you understand it, everything about change starts to make sense. Your nervous system is not designed to chase dreams. It's designed to keep you alive. And it does that by constantly asking one simple question: is this safe or is this a threat? When something feels uncertain, your body goes into protection mode. Your breathing changes. Your muscles tighten. Your focus narrows. Creativity shuts down. And suddenly, even simple actions feel heavy. You tell yourself you're procrastinating, but what's really happening is your system is bracing for danger, not physical danger, but emotional danger. Failure, rejection, disappointment, looking foolish. These don't feel logical threats, but to your nervous system, they were real. That's why so many people start strong and then fade. In the beginning, everything is new and exciting. There's novelty, hope, possibility. But as soon as uncertainty shows up, when results don't come fast enough, when progress feels invisible, the nervous system interprets that unpredictability as unsafe, and it pulls the emergency brake. You don't lose motivation. You lose a sense of certainty. Certainty is what your body craves. It's the feeling of knowing what's coming next. It's the rhythm of predictability. When certainty is present, the body relaxes. When the body relaxes, power becomes available. That's why repetition is so powerful. Not because repetition is exciting, but because it creates familiarity. And familiarity equals safety. Think about your daily life. You don't get stressed brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to tie your shoes. Your body doesn't resist these actions because they're certain, they're wired. There's no internal debate, no emotional friction. Now imagine bringing that same level of certainty to the actions that shape your future. That's what consistency really does. It turns effort into identity. Every time you repeat an action, you're teaching your nervous system that this behavior is normal, that it's expected, that it's not a threat. Over time, resistance fades. The discomfort doesn't disappear, but it stops feeling dangerous. And once something stops feeling dangerous, you can do it calmly, you can do it clearly, you can do it powerfully. Most people try to change their lives by shocking their system. They make huge plans, drastic rules, extreme commitments, and their nervous system panics. It says, this is unfamiliar, this is unpredictable, this is risky. And it fights back through excuses, fatigue, distraction, and self-sabotage. The person thinks they lack discipline, but the truth is they violated their system's need for safety. See, consistency works because it respects the biology. Small, repeated actions create predictability. Predictability creates safety. Safety creates capacity. And capacity is what allows you to grow. You don't expand by force. You expand by making the unfamiliar familiar. That's why when people say, I know what to do, I just can't get myself to do it, the answer is not more pressure, it's more certainty. It's designing your actions in a way your nervous system can trust. Same time, same place, same rhythm, over and over again. At first it feels almost too simple, but simplicity is what signals safety. And once safety is established, something shifts internally. Your energy stabilizes, your focus improves, your emotional spikes soften. You stop swinging between excitement and burnout. You start operating from grounded momentum. This is where real progress lives. Here's something powerful to understand. When your nervous system feels safe, it allows access to higher levels of thinking. Creativity opens up, problem solving improves, vision expands. But when it feels threatened, all of that shuts down. So if you're trying to build a bigger life while your system is constantly in fight or flight, you refighting yourself every step of the way, consistency retrains the body to trust the future. It says, I know what comes next and I can handle it. That trust changes how you experience challenges. Problems stop feeling like threats and start feeling like puzzles. Setbacks stop feeling like rejection and start feeling like feedback. You don't collapse emotionally because your system knows the rhythm continues. This is also why consistency builds emotional resilience. When life throws something unexpected at you, you don't shatter. You return to your baseline. Your routines become anchors. Your habits become stabilizers. You don't need everything to go right to feel okay, because your nervous system has learned that stability comes from within. And let me tell you something that can change how you view fear. Fear doesn't disappear when you're certain. Fear becomes manageable. It becomes something you move with instead of something that stops you. Certainty doesn't mean you know the outcome. It means you know yourself. You know you'll show up. You know you'll adjust. You know you won't quit. That knowing is what calms the system. Most people wait to feel safe before they act. But safety comes from acting consistently, not from waiting. Each repetition tells your body, I survived this, I can do it again. And with every repetition, confidence deepens. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. This is how consistency becomes a form of self-regulation. It steadies your emotions. It organizes your energy. It brings order to the internal chaos. And when your inner world becomes organized, the outer world starts responding differently to you. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop avoiding. You start engagi. You stop burning out. You start building .br. And here's the final truth I want you to feel. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of safety your nervous system allows. So if you want more power, more clarity, more success, don't start by demanding more from yourself. Start by creating certainty. Create the rhythm. Repeat the action. Teach your body that this is who you are now. When certainty is built, everything else has room to grow. Most people are waiting for momentum to show up before they move. They're waiting to feel confident, inspired, certain that their effort will pay off. They say, once I see results, then I'll be consistent. But that belief has it completely backward. Momentum doesn't come first. Momentum is the reward, and if you wait for it, you'll wait forever. Our momentum is built, not found. It's created through action taken in uncertainty. It's born in moments where nothing seems to be happening, yet you show up anyway. And this is where most people quit, not because it's too hard, but because it feels invisible. The human mind wants proof. It wants feedback. It wants to know that what you're doing is working. And when that feedback doesn't arrive quickly, doubt fills the space.br. Here's the truth you need to hear. Progress is often happening long before it becomes visible. Just like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it. You trust the process. You let time and repetition do their work. But most people sabotage momentum because they demand evidence before the roots have time to form. Early momentum is quiet. It doesn't feel powerful. It feels awkward. It feels clumsy. It feels like effort with no applause. And if you misinterpret that phase as failure, you'll stop right before the breakthrough. Momentum is not an emotional surge. It's a directional force. And it only forms after enough consistent action creates forward pull. Think about pushing a car that's stalled. At first, nothing moves. You're pushing, straining, breathing hard. It feels pointless. Then suddenly, there's a shift. The car starts rolling. And once it's moving, keeping it moving takes far less effort. Life works the same way. The hardest part is not sustaining momentum. The hardest part is creating it. Most people give up during the push phase. They mistake resistance for a sign they're doing something wrong. But resistance is not a stop sign. It's proof that inertia is being challenged. And inertia always fights back before it releases. Momentum also doesn't care about perfection. It cares about direction. Small steps forward compound. Tiny improvements stack. One action creates the next. And before you know it, you look back and realize you're moving faster than you ever thought possible. But none of that happens if you're constantly stopping, restarting, and questioning every move. Let me tell you something critical. The moment you stop waiting for motivation and start honorable, oring movement, everything shifts. Action creates clarity. Movement creates confidence. You don't get clear and then act. You act and then clarity shows up. That clarity feeds momentum, and momentum feeds belief. Belief doesn't come from positive thinking. Belief comes from evidence. And the only way to create evidence is through repeated action. Every time you show up, even when it's messy, you're stacking proof that you can move forward. That proof builds trust, and trust fuels momentum. Here's where people misunderstand momentum. They think it's dramatic. They think it feels like excitement or adrenaline. Real momentum feels like inevitability. It feels like things are lining up, like resistance is lower, like decisions are easier, like opportunities are appearing. But those lucky breaks are almost always the result of sustained movement, not chance. Momentum also changes how the world responds to you. When you're in motion, people notice. Energy attracts energy. Opportunities are drawn to action. But when you're waiting, hoping, overthinking, nothing moves toward you. Life meets you at the speed you're moving. And understand this, momentum is fragile in the beginning. It needs protection. That means you stop measuring too early. You stop seeking validation. You stop comparing your starting point to someone else's highlight reel. Comparison kills momentum because it shifts your focus from progress to performance. Momentum thrives in focus. When you commit to the next T-step, not the entire staircase, your energy stays contained. You don't overwhelm yourself with outcomes. You anchor yourself in execution. And execution repeated daily creates flow. Another truth most people don't want to accept is that momentum doesn't eliminate fear. It outruns it. Fear gets quieter when movement gets louder. When you sit still, fear has the microphone. When you move, fear becomes background noise. You still hear it, but it no longer controls you. Momentum also reshapes your identity. At first, you're someone trying, then you're someone practicing, then you're someone doing, and eventually, you're someone who just is. The label changes because the behavior becomes consistent. You don't need to convince yourself anymore. Your actions speak for you. And here's something powerful. Once momentum is established in one area of your life, it spills into others. Confidence becomes transferable. Discipline strengthens. Decision-making sharpens. You don't feel like you're starting from zero every time. You feel like you're building from strength. Most people never experience this because they quit during the slow phase. They underestimate the power of staying, of continuing, of showing up when nothing is cheering them on. But that's exactly where momentum is forged. So if you feel like nothing is happening, don't stop. If it feels boring, don't stop. If it feels uncomfortable, don't stop. Those are not signs of failure. They are signs that momentum is forming. Keep moving. Momentum is catching up to you. Most people are trying to change their lives by changing how they feel. They wake up and ask, do I feel confident today? Do I feel motivated today? Do I feel ready? And if the answer is no, they shrink their actions to match that feeling. But that approach puts your emotions in charge of your future. And emotions by nature are inconsistent. They rise and fall. They react. They follow circumstances. If you let them lead, your life will always be reactive. Here's the shift that changes everything. You don't wait to feel like a confident person and then act. You act first and confidence follows. Identity is not something you discover, it's something you build. And the building material is behavior. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. When you keep casting the same vote day after day, that identity becomes solid. Not because you declared it, but because you proved it. This is where most people get stuck. They try to think their way into a new identity instead of behaving their way into one. You can stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself you're confident, disciplined, focused, successful. But if your actions don't support those words, your nervous system rejects them. It says that's not true. And the result is frustration. The real transformation happens when your behavior aligns with the identity you want, even before you feel it. Confidence doesn't come from certainty about outcomes. It comes from certainty about yourself. From knowing that no matter what happens, you will show up, adjust, and continue. And that certainty is created by repetition, not by motivation, not by belief, by action. Think about the first time you did anything meaningful in your life. You didn't feel confident. You felt awkward, uncertain, maybe even afraid, but you did it anyway. And the second time felt slightly easier. And the third time, you started to trust yourself. Eventually, the fear didn't disappear, but your identity shifted. You stopped seeing yourself as someone who was trying and started seeing yourself as someone who does. That's the real source of confidence. It's earned, and it's earned quietly, through small, consistent actions that no one else sees, through moments where you could quit but don't, through days where you show up without applause. Most people wait for confidence as permission to act, but confidence is the receipt, not the entry ticket. You get it after you pay the price. And the price is consistency. This is also why motivation is overrated. Motivation is a feeling. Identity is a commitment. When you identify as someone who shows up, you don't negotiate with yourself every day. You don't ask, should I do this? You just do it. The decision has already been made. When behavior leads, identity follows. And once identity shifts, behavior becomes easier. That's the loop. Action creates identity. Identity reinforces action. And suddenly, why what once felt difficult feels natural. Here's where people get discouraged. They expect identity to change quickly. They take a few actions and wonder why they still feel the same. But identity is like a reputation you build with yourself. One action doesn't change it. Consistency does. Over time, the evidence becomes undeniable. Your brain is always watching. It's collecting data. Every time you follow through, it takes note. Every time you quit, it takes note. And it forms a story about who you are. The good news is that story is not fixed. You can rewrite it, but you rewrite it with action, not intention. This is also why setbacks don't have to destroy confidence. If your identity is built on consistency, not perfection, one missed day doesn't shake you. You don't collapse into self-judgment. You simply return to the pattern. That return strengthens identity more than never slipping at all. When you act consistently, you stop asking for external validation. You don't need approval to feel solid. You've built internal proof, and internal proof is unshakable. Praise becomes optional. Criticism becomes information. Neither defines you. And let me tell you something important. The world responds differently to people who know who they are. Not because they're loud or aggressive, but because they're grounded. There's a calm confidence that comes from alignment, from doing what you said you would do, from being predictable to yourself. That kind of confidence is felt. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you make decisions. You stop over-explaining. You stop second-guessing. You stop trying to convince people. You simply move forward. Identity also simplifies life. When you know who you are, decisions become easier. You don't waste energy debating every choice. You ask one question: is this aligned with who I am becoming? And if the answer is no, the decision is already made. Most people exhaust themselves trying to manage their feelings instead of managing their actions. But feelings follow actions far more than actions follow feelings. When you move your body, your emotions catch up. When you keep promises to yourself, self-respect grows. When self-respect grows, confidence stabilizes. And here's the final truth in this piece. You don't become confident and then consistent. You become consistent, and confidence has no choice but to show up. Act like the person you want to be, and eventually you won't be acting anymore. Most people think their life feels chaotic because they don't have enough time, enough resources, or enough support. They say, if things would just slow down, if people would stop pulling at me, if life would give me a break, then I could get it together. But chaos is rarely about what's happening around you. It's about the absence of rhythm within you. When there's no rhythm, everything feels urgent. Everything feels overwhelming. Everything feels like it's happening at once. Rhythm is what organizes life. E. Look at nature. The sun rises and sets. Tides move in and out. Seasons change in predictable cycles. Nothing powerful in nature operates randomly, and you're not separate from that system. Your body, your mind, your emotions all crave rhythm. When rhythm is missing, stress takes over. When rhythm is present, clarity emerges. Most people live reactively. They wake up already behind. They check messages, respond to demands, chase fires all day, and collapse at night wondering where the time went. There's no structure, no anchor, no predictable pattern. And without realizing it, they train their nervous system to live in constant response mode. That's not living, that's surviving. Rhythm changes that. Rhythm gives your energy somewhere to land. When you move through your days with intentional patterns, your mind stops racing. You're no longer guessing what comes next. You're no longer negotiating. Every decision, you've decided in advance how you move, how you work, how you reset. And that decision alone frees enormous mental and emotional energy. Here's the powerful truth. When you move in rhythm, life starts moving with you instead of against you. Problems don't disappear, but they stop piling up. You stop feeling like you're constantly catching up. Momentum becomes steady instead of frantic. Progress becomes sustainable instead of exhausting. Most people associate structure with restriction. They think routine will trap them, limit them, take the fun out of life. But the E opposite is true. Rhythm creates freedom. Because when the basics are handled consistently, your creativity has space to breathe. Your mind is no longer cluttered with unfinished decisions. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most in control, most clear, most powerful. Chances are you had some form of rhythm. You were sleeping consistently, moving your body regularly, focusing at certain times, resting at certain times. You weren't guessing your way through the day. You were living inside a flow. Chaos thrives in inconsistency. When sleep is random, energy is random. When focus is random, results are random. When effort is random, confidence is random. Rhythm brings order. And when order shows up internally, the external world starts responding differently. This is where consistency evolves into something deeper. It's no longer just about discipline. It's about harmony. You stop fighting yourself. You stop forcing. You stop starting over. You begin to move in alignment with how you're wired to function. And here's something most people miss. Rhythm doesn't have to be intense. It has to be reliable. A simple daily structure done consistently will outperform a complex plan done occasionally every time. Rhythm doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. When rhythm is in place, stress drops because your nervous system knows what to expect. Focus improves because you're not constantly switching gears. Decision fatigue disappears because many decisions have already been made. You don't wake up asking, what should I do today? You wake up knowing how you move. Life responds to rhythm with opportunity. People trust predictable energy. Teams work better around consistent leaders. Businesses grow faster with steady execution. Relationships deepen when presence is reliable. Rhythm builds trust, not just within yourself, but in every area of your life. And when something unexpected happens, rhythm becomes your anchor. You don't spiral. You don't lose your footing. You return to your patterns. You stabilize quickly. That stability is what allows you to adapt without breaking. Most people try to manage chaos by doing more hours, more effort, more pressure. But chaos doesn't resolve through force. It resolves through order. And order begins with rhythm. Rhythm also brings patience. When you trust your patterns, you stop rushing outcomes. You know that if you show up today and tomorrow and the next day, results are inevitable. You stop grasping. You stop chasing. You move steadily forward. This is how burnout disappears. Burnout isn't caused by work. It's caused by lack of rhythm between effort and recovery. When everything is pushed and nothing is replenished, the system collapses. Rhythm restores balance. It tells you when to push and when to pause. And let me say this clearly, you don't need to control life for it to fall into place. You need to control your rhythm. When your rhythm is strong, life organizes itself around you. You stop reacting to chaos and start setting the pace. You stop feeling scattered and start feeling centered. You stop surviving days and start building a life. Move in rhythm and watch how quickly everything begins to align. Most people say they want success, but what they really want is the feeling of success without the structure that creates it. They say, I'll work on it when I have time, or I'll get serious when things calm down. But here's the truth that decides everything. If it's not scheduled, it's not real. Dreams live in intention, but success lives in your calendar. Your daily schedule is not just a list of tasks, it's a declaration of priorities. It shows, without emotion or excuses, what you truly value. And when something important is left to chance, it gets crowded out by what's urgent, what's loud, what's familiar. That's why so many people feel busy but unfulfilled. They're moving all day, but not moving toward what matters. Success doesn't show up randomly. It's not luck. It's not timing. It's the result of decisions made in advance. When you decide ahead of time when you will act, you remove negotiation. You don't wake up asking, should I do this today? You already decided. That decision frees mental energy and protects consistency. Most people underestimate how powerful this is. They think scheduling is rigid or boring. But scheduling is not about controlling your life. It's about protecting what matters from being stolen by distract. When you schedule your priorities, you're telling yourself, this matters enough to deserve a place in my life. Here's what happens when you don't schedule. You rely on willpower. And willpower is a limited resource. It fades when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. But when something is scheduled, it bypasses willpower. You don't need to feel motivated to follow a plan, you just follow it. This is how high performers operate. They don't wait for inspiration, they design their days. They know that what gets repeated daily becomes automatic, and what becomes automatic shapes destiny. That's why success looks effortless from the outside. But it's not effortless, it's organized. Scheduling also creates honesty. When you write down how you spend your time, the truth becomes visible. You see where energy leaks. You see where excuses hide. And that awareness alone is transformational. You stop lying to yourself about what you'll get to someday. And here's something important. Scheduling doesn't mean filling every minute. It means intentionally creating space for what moves you forward. Space for focus, space for growth, space for recovery. When everything is a blur, nothing gets done well. Structure creates depth. Most people try to fit their goals into leftover time, but leftover time is unpredictable. It's inconsistent, and consistency is the foundation of everything you want. When you schedule your actions, you create certainty, and certainty creates follow-through. Think about this. If someone asked you to show up for an important meeting at a specific time, you'd find a way, you'd adjust, you'd plan, you'd show up. Why? Because it's scheduled. Now imagine treating your own growth with the same level of respect. Imagine honoring your commitments to yourself as seriously as you honor commitments to others. This is where self-respect is built, not in big declarations, but in protected time. When you keep showing up for what you scheduled, trust grows, confidence stabilizes, you stop feeling scattered and start feeling intentional. Scheduling also protects you from overwhelm. When tasks live only in your head, they multiply and create anxiety. When they're placed on a calendar, they become manageable, finite. You stop carrying everything at once. You deal with things when it's time to deal with them. And here's the deeper truth. Success is not about doing more. It's about doing the right things consistently. Scheduling forces clarity. It asks what actually matters. And when you answer that honestly, your time aligns with your values. Most people don't fail because they can't do the work. They fail because they don't decide when the work gets done. And when decisions are delayed, excuses rush in. Let me tell you this. The calendar is where intention becomes reality. It's where hope turns into action. It's where consistency becomes inevitable. When your success is scheduled, it no longer depends on mood, energy, or circumstance. It becomes part of your life's rhythm. And once that happens, progress stops being a struggle and starts being a process. Decide what matters, schedule it, and let success show up right on time.